Wine was sitting in the bride room. The room was silent and heavy. She was wearing a beautiful wedding dress, but her face was nothing like that. It was pale, emotionless, something no one could describe. Today was a marriage, a forced marriage that her father arranged for her. From childhood, she was never enough for her parents. She always lived overshadowed, disappointment, and unloved by them. They never prioritized her feelings, and this marriage was just another example of that. On the other side, Jungkook was standing at the ashley. His face was hard, emotionless, showing clearly that he didn't like what was happening. He was a professor at Wines University, highly reputed, cold, strict, and the type of man every girl drool over. He was also forced into this marriage. He didn't want it either, but being the best friend of Wine's family and pressurized by her father, he eventually had to agree. At some point, he even thought that maybe it was Wine herself who wanted this marriage. Now both of them stood in front of each other. Wine looked up with her trembling eyes and saw Jungkook still staring at her. His face was hard, emotionless, something she couldn't describe. But one thing she understood, he wasn't happy about this marriage either. But what could she do? She couldn't do anything. She was never important enough in her own family for her words or feelings to matter. With a soft defeated sigh, she accepted her fate. Her gaze dropped to the floor as she let the truth settle deep inside her chest. Maybe she never deserved the happiness, the love she always dreamed of. Why now sitting in the unfamiliar bedroom? The room was dark and the faint scent of Jungkook's still lingering in the air. Jungkook hadn't come to the bedroom yet. While sitting there, her thought began to drift. She thought about her life, how everything had changed so suddenly. How she had ended up marrying her professor, her cold, scary professor, the one every student held their breath around. Even Wyan always been scared of him. She was his least favorite student, never getting good marks in his subject. And because of that, he always seems disappointed in her. He never liked her much. While lower her head, sighed softly, and whispered to herself, I just become another disappointment in my husband's life too, just like I was in my parents'. A hollow smile appeared on her lips. Then she stood up weakly and walked towards the bathroom to freshen up. After some time, she stepped out again. The room was still empty. Jungkook hadn't come in yet. She let out a breath of relief. Right now, she didn't want to face him. Quietly, she walked towards the bed and lay down, closing her eyes in hope of getting some sleep. After some time, Jungkook finally entered the room. He closed the door behind him and walked inside. His eyes landed on Wyan, already asleep. He stared at her for a moment, then sighed. Saying nothing, he went to the washroom to freshen up. After coming out, he quietly lay down beside her. He turned slightly and looked at her sleeping face. How peaceful she looked. How steady her breathing was. How easily she had fallen asleep, as if none of this bothered her. As if this marriage, this loveless bond meant nothing to her. His jaw clenched. He still believed it was Wine who arranged this marriage, who convinced her father to pressurize him into it. With that thought, he turned his back to her and closed his eyes, trying to sleep, but he knew sleep wouldn't come easily tonight. It was morning, and Wine's eyes fluttered open. She glanced around the unfamiliar room. The memory. This was another place she didn't belong. With a heavy sigh, she looked at the clock. It was already 8. she muttered, realizing it was the first class with Mr. Jeon. He was going to scold her if she was late. As she made her way towards the bathroom, Won noticed that the bedroom was still empty. Jungkook hadn't come in last night. Maybe he didn't want to see her face, she thought bitterly. With a sigh, she started to getting ready for university. Wine was now running towards the classroom, her legs unsteady. She knew Jungkook was already inside. The lecture had already started, and the only thing echoing in her mind was that he was definitely going to scold her for being late. Standing in front of the door, she took a deep breath and whispered tremblingly, "May I come in, sir?" Jungkook's dark eyes lifted immediately, landing on the girl who was breathing hard, as if she had run a marathon. His expression didn't soften, his face remained cold and sharp. "You are late," he said in a voice so cold the entire class sniffed. One lowered her head, clutching her finger tightly. All the students' eyes were on her now, watching her, judging her. She hated attention, and right now every stare felt like a weight on her chest. Jungkook's voice cut through the silence again. "Do you know what time it is?" One didn't answer. She stayed completely silent, eyes on the floor. After a moment she whispered softly, I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again." But before Jungkook could respond, a girl from the class, Rina, spoke up with a smirk. "Sir, she always said that, but she still comes late every time." She looked directly at Wine, smirking as if enjoying her embarrassment. But Jungkook's dark eyes snapped to Rina, cold and deep. "Did I ask your opinion?" Rina's smile vanished instantly. She didn't expect Jungkook to say that, especially for Wine. Her jaw clenched. She looked down and muttered, "I'm sorry, sir." Jungkook then turned his eyes back to Wine. "Come inside," he said, the coldness still clear in his voice. Wine quickly looked up, bored and walked inside. She sat quietly at her desk, still trembling. Across the room, Rina's glare, full of annoyance and disbelief. She couldn't accept the fact that Jeon Jungkook had scolded her because of wine. After some time, the lecture ended. Jungkook faced the student and said in a deep, cold voice, "Next week, I will take a test. All of you must be prepared." The entire class sniffed, eyes widening. He continued sharply, "I want each and every one of you to do well in this test. Am I clear?" All the students nodded immediately. Before leaving, his eyes flickered to one last time, expression unreadable. Then he walked out of the room. Now Jungkook was sitting in his cabin, buried in his paper. A knock at the door made him look up, his expression already hard. "Come in," he said in a cold, clipped voice. One took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and stepped inside. Jungkook glanced at her, his face falling even harder. Then, without a word, he returned his gaze to the paper in front of him. "What do you want to say?" he asked, voice icy. Why shallow the lump in her throat? She could already feel the irritation in his tone. I'm here to talk to you," she said slowly, barely above a whisper. Jungkook finally looked up. He rose from his seat, each movement deliberate, commanding. With each step he took towards her, one felt her chest tighten, her legs trembling. He stopped a short distance away, one hand resting casually in his pocket. Then say what you want to say, he said, his voice firm, cold. One lowered her gaze, voice quiet and hesitant. About the marriage. I want to talk about that. He let out a sharp sigh, eyes fixed on her. If you want to talk about this marriage, he began, voice clipped but steady. I'll make things clear to you. This this is a forced marriage for me. I didn't want to do this, especially not with my student. His voice grew colder. But as you already know, your father pressurized mine, and my father being close friend with your family for years, he couldn't refuse, so I had no choice but to say yes. While lower her eyes, tears slipped down silently. She couldn't respond. She already felt the weight of his words, the harsh reality she had feared. He continued, voice steady, almost resigned. So it's better if we don't expect anything from each other. Vine lifted her gaze slowly. Surprisingly, the words didn't hurt her anymore. She was used to this, used to be unwanted, used to being overshadowed. Her face remained expressionless as she nodded. I understand, sir, she said quietly. Jungkook nodded once, his eyes unreadable. Without another word, Vine turned around and left the cabin. After that day, 5 days has already passed. Their relationship remained the same, distance, cold, unchanged. Jungkook stayed reserved, rarely speaking even when necessary. Wine too remained quiet, never invading his privacy. It was night. Both were asleep, but Jungkook heard a faint sound coming from beside him. He turned and saw Wine trembling in her sleep. Sweat had begun to form on her forehead. Jungkook frowned. Wine mumbled something in her sleep, her voice shaky and broken. I'm sorry, please. I'll do better. Please don't turn around. I promise I won't. He immediately realized she was having nightmare. Carefully, he shifted closer and took her hand. Softly, Wine, it's okay, calm down, he whispered. He wondered silently why she was having such nightmares. Slowly, he pulled her closer against his chest, began rubbing her back gently. It's okay, I'm here. Wake up, Wine. Slowly, Wine's eyes fluttered open. She was breathing heavily. Tears slung on her lashes as she looked up at Jungkook, whose expression was full of concern. Are you okay? Take a deep breath, he said in a deep, smoothing voice. Wine's breath hissed as she realized how close he was. She instinctively tried to pull back. I'm sorry, I didn't know how, she mumbled, looking down, but Jungkook didn't let her finish. Get up, he said firmly. Wine slowly sat on the bed. Jungkook retrieved a glass of water from the bedside and helped her drink carefully. She looked down, embarrassed. She didn't realize he was still holding her hand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb your sleep. I don't know how, she whispered, pulling her hand back. It's okay, Jungkook said in a deep, smoothing voice. His hand moved to her temple, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Wine's heart raced at his touch. He frowned, pressing his hand to her forehead. He said, his voice cold but tense with concern. Wine shivered, tried to shake it off. It's nothing, she said shakily. How can it be nothing? He said sharply. You have a fever. Then he rose from the bed, returned with a medicine in hand. Take this, he said, voice low and firm. Wine looked at him quietly, curiosity in her eyes. She had no energy to argue. She took the medicine silently and lay back down, trying to sleep. Jungkook quietly lay beside her, watching her close her eyes. All night he didn't sleep. He stayed awake, checking her fever time to time, making sure it didn't raise. He remained at her side, silently taking care of her without once knowing. It was morning. Jungkook opened his eyes and immediately frowned. Wan wasn't beside him. She was nowhere in the bedroom. Sitting up on the bed, he scanned the room, his gaze finally falling on the clock. It was past 8. 8 already. I slept too much. He muttered to himself, his voice low. One must be at university by now, even with a fever. With a sigh, he got up and began getting ready for the university. After dressing, he made his way downstairs to the living room. A maid passed by, and Jungkook stopped her. Wait. The maid stopped and lowered her head immediately. Has Wine left for university? He asked, his tone cold. The maid nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Did she have her breakfast? Jungkook asked her again. The maid shook her head. No, sir. I asked her, but she said she wasn't hungry. Then she left the house. Jungkook didn't respond. He simply gave her a subtle signal to leave, and the maid bowed before leaving. After a while, Jungkook stepped out of the house and headed to his class. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Jungkook was giving his lecture as usual, but his eyes kept drifting towards Wine. She was quietly taking notes, her focus unwavering, yet he couldn't help but stealing glances at her repeatedly. Rina noticed everything. She saw the way Jungkook kept looking at Wine, something he had never done before. Her jaw clenched tightly. Time passed, and finally the class ended. Jungkook's cold voice cut through the chatter. Miss Wan. Wan looked up immediately, startled. Meet me in my office now, he added, his voice sharp and commanding. All the students' eyes fell on Wan. Rina's eyes widened in shock. Her fists clenched tightly. As Jungkook left the classroom, Rina's gaze stayed locked on Wan. Throat gritted her teeth. She muttered, I have to do something, something that Mr. June will hate her for. Wan, on the other side, stayed seated confused. Her heart raced. Why is he calling me? Did I do something wrong? Wan stood nervously in front of Jungkook's cabin, her hand hovering over the door before softly knocking. Come in. Jungkook's cold voice came through the other side. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, moving slowly towards his desk. Sit down, he commanded, in a deep, firm tone. Wan frowned slightly, but obeyed, settling into the chair. Jungkook's eyes softened for a brief moment as he placed something on his desk. I bought breakfast for both of us, he said. Wan's eyes widened slightly, surprised. You left without eating, he continued, his voice calmer now. So eat. A strange warmth stirred in Wan's chest. Never in her life had anyone done something or said something for her. She lowered her gaze. It's really not needed. I wasn't that hungry. Before she could finish, Jungkook's sudden gaze met hers. Eat now. He was still weak from last night's fever. With a resigned sigh, Wan began to eat. The room fell silent. After a while, Jungkook broke the quiet, his tone cold but lazy with concern. Tomorrow is the exam. Have you prepared everything? Wan looked up immediately, her cheek puffed with food, and for a moment Jungkook felt an unfamiliar flutter in his chest at the sight. Slowly she nodded. If you have any doubts, you can tell me anything. Wan nodded again, staying silent and returned her attention to her breakfast, quietly eating as Jungkook watched. Wine was sitting in the exam hall. The instructor had already distributed the question paper, and she was writing peacefully. Most of the questions were familiar to her, and she wrote with focus. Suddenly, a voice behind her, "Sir, Wine is cheating on the exam." Wine's pen froze mid sentence. She slowly looked up, hearing her name. Her heart pounded. The instructor frowned and walked over. "What?" Rena sitting smugly behind Wine, pointing at her desk. "Sir, look, there is a cheat under Wine's desk." Wine's hand began to tremble uncontrollably. The instructor bent down and lifted the cheat notes. Wine immediately stood up, her heart sinking. She didn't understand what was happening. "What is this?" the instructor asked, his voice cold and sharp. I don't know, sir," she stammered, her voice shaking. "I didn't put that there. I swear I didn't know anything about this." From behind, Rena smirked. "It's under your desk, Wine, so obviously it's yours." Wine's chest tightened and tears welled up in her eyes. She turned to look at Rena, hurt and disbelief mixing her gaze, then back at the instructor. "Sir, please, please believe me, it's not mine. I didn't do anything," she whispered, her voice breaking. The instructor's tone became colder. "I have to call Mr. Jeon. It's his exam. He will decide what to do." One's stomach dropped, and she shook her head. "Please, sir, believe me, I didn't do it." The instructor didn't say anything and called Jungkook. After a few moments later, Jungkook entered the classroom. His presence was heavy, commanding silence. All the students held their breath. He walked directly towards them, his eyes immediately landing on Wan's trembling figure, head lower. "What happened?" he asked, his voice calm but intense. The instructor spoke quietly. "Sir, this girl, she was caught cheating on the exam." Jungkook's brow frowned. He looked at Wine, who was now crying uncontrollably. Her tears sneaked down her face as she whispered desperately, "Sir, please believe me, I didn't do anything." From behind, Rena watched, her smirk sharp. The instructor turned to Jungkook again. "Sir, what should I do? Should I cancel her exam?" Wan's gaze snapped up at Jungkook, pleading, tears streaming down her face. "No, sir, please believe me." Jungkook's heart clenched as he looked at her crying like that. After a long moment, he turned to instructor, his voice cold and firm. "Let her finish the exam. I'll handle everything tomorrow." One's chest lifted slightly with relief, but when she glanced at him, she saw a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. Her heart felt heavy. Her tears hadn't stopped, but she managed a small note. After one last glance at her, Jungkook turned and left the room.